All right, folks, welcome on into another edition of the High School Huddle, your one-stop shop for everything and all things Section 5 sports. I'm AJ Feldman. He's Carl Jones. Carl, we're previewing the state basketball tournament today. It is NFL free agency, and the last time those things combined, Von Miller got signed. You were going viral for your eyes, so I'm just waiting to see what the heck's going to happen in this week's episode.
You know what? Brendan Bean said that he won't be shopping on Fifth Ave this year, so I assume it won't be anything big, but I'm not putting anything past him. I'm not putting anything past any big high school news. Let's just hope that I don't do anything that makes me go viral this time around. I'm going to just stay mellow, stay composed. If Josh Allen somehow gets traded, I'll just say, hey, AJ, the Bills lost their quarterback, and that's all I'll say.
I would pay money to see you try and react that way to a Josh Allen trade or anything of the site, because the one thing I've noticed since that day is that the eyes come out more than you think. Anything that is like a 6 out of 10 on the emotion scale, it's a big reaction. So I'm waiting to see what's going to happen, but nothing too busy expected today. We've got a big show for you guys. We say this a lot this time of year, big show. We got a lot of guests. We've got 4 guests coming on our podcast today. We've got 3 guests to talk about the boys basketball games we've got coming up this weekend. We've got our boy Jeff from Empire State Takeover to talk about all things girls basketball. Thankfully, he can do the job of 3 different people, so we only got to reach out to one person. But we got a big show, Carl. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and they're all knowledgeable. They all know what they're talking about. It's fun. They all add different flavors to it as well. I think that's what's kind of cool. All different ages, all different viewpoints. And I think that's the cool thing about just sports in general. Like, you and I can watch the same exact game and have 2 different opinions on it. And that's what you're kind of going to get with the flavors that we got from our guests as well.
Exactly. We've got from all over the state. It's going to be a great show. But first, let's do a quick little recap of what happened last week to get us to this point. We'll start with the basketball side. Boys and the girls each went 3-3 in their respective Far West regionals. We'll start with the girls. On Friday, Hilton girls coming out on top, 56-43, taking down Star Point Mallory Highs. A great effort in the first quarter, the first half, to lead them to victory. Fairport, I will just say this, maybe the most surprising result of all. Fairport only loses by 10 to Lancaster and Maddie Francis. And, we kind of got to eat a little bit of crow here. I certainly, because, I didn't think this game would be within 10, within 20, maybe within 30. But Fairport showed me a lot in that game, sticking in it. They were only down 6 points in the fourth quarter. I think we got to show some love to the Fairport Red Raiders here.
Definitely. I mean, watching it from afar on the stream, they've also been playing better, all tournament. They've Lola Pucci, I believe, is the younger Pucci's name. She's been solid. I don't know how she played in that game in particular, but she's been solid during this entire tournament stretch. And I mean, the ladies were like, you know what? They put their shoes on one shoe at a time, just like us, just like we do. So we're not going to be scared. And they clearly went out with for some force, and they weren't scared of the opponent whatsoever.
Yeah, who knows what's going to happen with the classifications down the road, but it could be Fairport playing in that game for quite some time there. On Saturday, Aquinas took down Newport 64-53. Lauren Green, the star, with 24 points for the Little Irish. Hornell loses 63-61 in a dramatic game to Southwestern. Reese Beaver for Southwestern scores 42 points to take down the Red Raiders. Southwestern was down big in that first half, then they came back. Frewsburg took down Dundee Brantford 75-67, and then Elba beat Panama 58-47. On the boys' side of things, Lyons came away with the win on Friday, 61-44 against Randolph. J.J. Johnson, the big man, another strong game, 21 points. UPrep falls to Niagara Falls by 6 on Friday night. Then Saturday, the defending state champs go down. Victor Blue Devils falling to Jamestown 51-45. Avon loses a close one, 56-52 to Salamanca. And then our 2 victors on Saturday for boys basketball. Wayne beating Will South by 17. Cam Blankenberg, another strong game. He's been great down the stretch, 30 points. And then Avoca Prattsburgh, 75-47. So we've got 6 teams going on to the state Final Four. And, a lot of these teams, a lot of these players, it's that time of year. These big players are showing up in big moments for their teams this weekend.
Cam Blankenberg doing big things for Wayne. I know he got a couple dunks. He's making he's a terror inside. And then Miss Green from Aquinas. Listen, I know that we talk about, how old you are, experience, whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. Well, you know what? if you don't know no better, it doesn't matter. I mean, she's a freshman. She don't know what this stage is supposed to be like. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know what? I'm just go out there and play basketball. And clearly the lights aren't too bright at all. AJ had a first row ticket to see them all and see every single bucket. I mean, from a distance, I saw the highlights. It looked like she was like, look, I'm the senior out there. How about that? And get out my way and let me cook. And boy, she looked phenomenal from a distance.
Yeah, she was really impressive in that game. He's going to need more performances like that as they go down the stretch. Then on the hockey side of things, a tough day for the Section 5 teams on Saturday. McQuaid and Batavia Notre Dame both come up short in the state semifinals. The Knights falling 3-2 in overtime to Orchard Park. They give up a goal with less than 2 minutes to go. They give up a goal in overtime to fall in that one. A tough game. Skinny Atlas, the defending state champs, now the two-time state champions, just overpowering United there. Section 5, an unfortunate little streak here that I looked up because just how many games I had been out there and not seen a win yet. Section 5 now 0-6 in the state semifinals since their last victory that was a couple years ago back when Victor ended up winning the state title. But a tough go for Section 5, but strong seasons for both of those teams as they made it back to the state semifinals. BND the first time ever, McQuaid the first time since 2015.
They had some fun postseasons for sure. I know Batavia and Notre Dame coming together in their third season together, and really, really talented bunch. We've been able to follow them from a distance all year long. I know Primetime gave them love like their second game of the year, and then from a distance, we've noticed how spectacular they've been. So the fact that they made it this far, kudos for them. And then also McQuaid getting back to that stage where they hadn't been since, I believe, like you said, 2015. So shout out to them. I know they didn't reach the ultimate prize, but climbing in the right direction for sure.
Climbing in the right direction for sure, falling in the state Final Four. But it's now time to turn our attention to the basketball state Final Four. Like I mentioned, we've got 4 different guests here. We're going to start off with the boys basketball slate. Our 3-man weave of coverage in Class A, Ben Reichert. He covers hoops down in Long Island. He's going to be talking Wayne and Friends Academy. Maddie Mustion there in the Syracuse area, breaking down Moravia versus Lyons. And then I chatted up with Mel Busler, the CBS affiliate sports director in Watertown, to talk all things Sackets Harbor and Avoca Prattsburgh. Let's bring you all those interviews right now to get you ready for state, semifinal, and championship weekend. All right, now it's time to welcome in Brian Reichert. He writes for Rivals and NYC Hoops and hosts the High School Basketball Weekly podcast. Also a basketball coach for 7 years. Knows everything that's going on there in Long Island hoops. Brian, thanks for coming on the podcast today and talking some state basketball with us today.
Yeah, AJ, thanks for having me. Really excited to chop it up about the New York basketball scene, especially now in the playoffs. Everything's popping right now.
It's an exciting time of the year, and we're going to focus on today Class A, Wayne taking on Friends Academy, who have really come down the stretch of the season. Everybody's obviously playing well to get to this point, but Friends on an 18-game winning streak. Just what have you seen from them down the stretch that has allowed them to kind of come on this little run here?
Yeah, Coach Johnson is doing a fantastic job. He's in his 6th year in the program, was previously at a powerhouse the 8 years before that. So he's a program builder, and he built his team for these late runs. You know, AJ, they started off 2-4, like you said, 18 straight. They had some tough non-league games early, but they've really relied on their starting 5, especially their big man, Jackson O'Brien, has really come alive down the stretch, and he is their go-to guy who's been phenomenal, especially in these playoffs.
Yeah, Wayne led by Cam Blankenberg, another big man who's really come down hot down the stretch here. Tell me a little bit more about Jackson's game and maybe what we can expect out of that matchup down low.
Yeah, it should be a good matchup. Coach was talking about that matchup when I asked him to give me a little bit more info about the team. That was the first name he mentioned. Yeah, Jackson's an inside-out player, has gotten some D1 looks recently, has talked about possibly going into 2025. But he's 6'6", 6'7", very strong, physical inside, has nice touch from the perimeter, can pass out of doubles, and very effective in the zone. Very smart player.
They took down Southampton, dramatic game in that Long Island title game in Class A. Tell me a little bit about that game and just the excitement behind it.
Yeah, AJ, it was a war. Friends was up 11. Southampton comes roaring back with Dominic White and Navon Williams, who's knocking on Friends. They actually took the lead late, and Friends, freshman point guard broke down the defense, AJ, and found Josh McKenzie for a layup with like 2 seconds to go as the crowd went crazy. He kind of took it, went under the defense, laid it in, and the whole place went wild as they got that last stop. So what an exciting atmosphere. The place was packed, and they have a great crowd too.
We talked a lot about Jackson O'Brien there. You mentioned a couple players there, but tell me a little bit more about their roster and some of the names people from around here should be focusing on during that game.
Yeah, so their starting five features 4 seniors and a freshman point guard. Ian Valadez is the point guard. He's shifty, very quick, smart, plays on some good AAU teams, so he's battle tested, even though he's a young guy. They got Kyle Kramer as their shooting guard. Looks like, the nicest guy in the world, and he is, but when he's on that court, he's lighting it up from three. He's got 68 threes, one of the tops in Nassau. They have another guard, Jake Bach, who is a soccer standout, top 100 player in soccer and basketball for us. He's going to be going to Syracuse, I think just as a student, but little upstate love from Jake Bach. And then I told you about McKenzie. He's their kind of do-it-all guy, 6'4", rebounds, athlete, guards your best defender. And then coach wanted me to make sure I mentioned Miles Morris and Will Davis off the bench. So that 7 is pretty much their force in their rotation.
You talk about a senior-laden team. This is a Friends Academy team that went to the state championship game in 2022, lost a real close one. I imagine a lot of those players were either on that team or key contributors to that team. How has that championship loss, how is that kind of maybe fueling their title run this time around?
Yeah, well, you're 100% right. A ton of those guys were on that team. A ton of the guys in the program and are on the team are younger brothers of guys who are on the start, in the starting rotation now. So they definitely learned a lot from that. While they were really disappointed, they made a great run. A lot of those guys were young. So hopefully they're taking that experience and, hopefully guys like Jackson O'Brien are making sure these guys are focused, looking at the task at hand and not just to kind of happy to be there. AJ, like, we're here, let's win it now. They've looked into Wayne. They know that they play a ton of zone. They're a defensive team, so they're well prepared for this game, and they feel like they're ready to go.
And then finally, I guess maybe what's your X factor, a key to the game? If what has to cook right for Friends in this game to come out on top?
Yeah, well, Friends is definitely going to shoot some threes. So if the zone is going to allow them to shoot some threes, if they're shooting well, it's going to be a problem for Wayne because these guys can shoot threes. 4 out of 5 of their guys are willing to shoot threes, and Valadez, the point guard, is going to try and break down that defense to get those guys to commit. And once you commit, he's passing out. He's a great passer. So I think the 3-point shot is going to be the key to Friends Academy and rebounding. They got to keep Wayne off the glass.
All right. Should be a great game, that game. Friday morning, championship game for whoever makes it out there. Saturday evening. Brian Reichert from the Long Island area, High School Basketball Weekly, Rivals, NYC Hoops. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast today.
No, AJ, anytime, my friend. I'm always down to hop on. Anytime you need me, my friend. It was a blast.
All right, thanks so much.
Anytime, my man.
All right, welcome back to the show. We're now joined by Maddie Mustion from WSYR, our sister station out in Syracuse. How are we doing today, Maddie?
I'm good. How are you?
No complaints. If you can tell by my background, I might have went to Syracuse for a little bit, so it is what it is in that regard. She's great. Actually, she was a couple years behind me, if not the year behind me, at Newhouse a couple years ago. So a little connection there for those at home. I don't know if y'all care or not, but I follow Maddie for a couple years now. She does fantastic work, so you guys really appreciate what she has to say. But let's get straight into it, though. Lyons will be taking on, in Class C, Moravia at Cool and Sharing Arena on Saturday in the semifinal. Maddie was fortunate enough to catch Moravia's regional game where they took down Waterville. You were there. They got out to a massive lead, I believe 22-5. What happened in that game?
Honestly, Carl, watching this team, they're just so dominant, especially when they get on those runs. I mean, Waterville kind of came back in that second half. But the Blue Devils, I mean, if you allow them to get off on those runs, they're a dangerous team. They're currently on like 14-game win streak. And if you allow them to, score, especially in transition, watch out because it's a tough team to beat when you allow them to get on those runs.
I mean, definitely. I mean, 22-5. That's one hell of a run right there. That's the start of the game. But they haven't played a Section 5 team this year. So for those at home who hasn't seen them before and their first opportunity to see them this weekend will be up against Lions, how would you describe them? Are they up and down the court, and like inside dominated? Are they shooting a bunch of threes? Just how would you describe this ball club?
I think that defensively, they're super physical. They're not afraid to, really bump into you, be physical, create those, turnovers, transitions. But they also, too, have Abram Wozleski, who is dangerous behind the arc. I mean, if you allow him to have even inches of separation from your defender, he's gonna take the shot, and 5 times out of 6, he's gonna make that. He had 31 points against Waterville, and watching him too, I was like, I can't believe this high schooler is taking those shots that were he only has a couple inches of separation and is making them. So watch out for him. But also, too, I think that they have a lot of depth on the team as well. If it's, he's getting double teamed, they have other people that can, drive towards the basket, take those threes.
So it sounds like we need to hit up Adrian Autry and say, like, hey, man, we got this guy over at Moravia. I'm not telling you should or shouldn't take him, but maybe just keep an eye on him. He's a pretty good player. He was pretty fun to watch, you would say, though?
Yeah, he was. I mean, 6'3" guard, and to have him have the confidence, especially as a high schooler, to, I think, be taking those shots when it's not necessarily the wide open shot. He's also a physical enough player. He's a 2-sport athlete, plays soccer, goalkeeper. I think he has those instincts in order for him to, know when to take the shot. And he has a lot of confidence that he knows, that he'll hit them. So I think a lot of practice in the gym behind the arc, but also, too, not afraid to drive towards the basket, make the shot, grab the foul.
Did you say 6'3"?
Yeah, 6'3".
That is a really, really tall guard for high school athletics. And the fact that you're saying that he got a bunch of confidence shooting the rock. I mean, confidence is a powerful drug when it comes to sports. So clearly, if Mr. Abram Wozleski, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, it is.
If he's cooking, then the Lions is going to have to be on their A game. Once again, for those at home, this game will be Friday, 7 p.m. at Cool Ensuring Arena. For those at home who maybe want to follow your work, where could they find you on? I don't want to say X. It's just so weird, but like Twitter and things of that nature.
It's always going to be Twitter. My Twitter handle is M_Mustion, and it's MUSTION. So.
Gotcha. And she covers everything Syracuse related. Obviously, Syracuse hoops, no bias from me whatsoever. None at all. I'm going to reiterate that. None. But big game tonight as we're recording this on Tuesday up against NC State, right?
Yeah, it'll be NC State. I know, and I'm so lame. I don't have any of my Syracuse stuff up. I feel like I just got here, but it's already March, so I need to start getting my decor up.
Yeah, you feel me? I'm gonna be rooting for the Orange tonight. She's gonna be really, really busy. Hopefully, they can win a couple conference games so they can go on a tournament run, and then obviously the ladies will for sure be on a tournament run. They'll be their selection is Sunday, correct?
Yeah, it's gonna be good. It's good.
Yeah, Rochester native Deaisha Fair will be leading the way in that department as well. So fun times and busy times for Miss Maddie over there in Syracuse over the next several weeks. But we really appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know you're off today, so I know you want to relax and chill and maybe knock out some errands. I know I'm not going to do that myself in a little bit. But once again, I really appreciate you taking time out.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great.
All right, and now it's time to bring in Mel Busler. He is the sports director at WWNY, the CBS affiliate in Watertown, New York, talking all things Sackets Harbor today. Mel, thanks for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. Nice to be with you.
All right, let's get right to it. So, Avoca Prattsburgh, the defending 2-time state champions, not many games, certainly in Class D, that they come into the game as an underdog. But this Sackets Harbor team, currently ranked number 1 in the state, they've only lost 1 game all season. Just first off, what's made this team so good this season?
They're very tenacious. Defense has been spectacular, and offensively, they're led by 2 guys, Austin Greiner and Marcus Castine. Griner's averaging about 20 points a game. He's a senior. And Castine's averaging about 15 points a game. He's a junior, and they make a great 1-2 punch.
So this Avoca Prattsburgh team, the two-time defending state champ, Sackets Harbor, hasn't been to the state Final Four in over a decade.
Yeah.
How have they dealt with some of these big stages that they faced this season, maybe for the first time in some of these young players' careers?
Well, you know, they against Harrisville the other day, they were down by 18 points in the game in the third quarter. And boy, if you were going to feel the pressure, that was the time to feel it. But they turned up the defense a little bit and were able to get some key baskets when they needed it. And Jeff Robbins, who coaches Sackets Harbor, outstanding coach, and really gets the most out of his players. He's one of the best coaches in Northern New York, and he's done a great job of getting this team together, getting them going. Plus, they have some role players too that know their roles, that fill in when they need to, and it's been a nice combination for them this year.
You talk about their star players, Griner and Castine. Watching a couple of their highlights, you know, they can create, they can pass, they can shoot. Tell me a little bit more about their game and what they bring to the table here leading this team.
Well, they're both not afraid to take it to the basket. Castine and Griner both are gritty players. I mean, if they see an opening to the basket, they'll take the lane. Both though have outstanding shooting touch from the outside. It's been a nice combination this year with them, and especially against the talent they've played up here. They've been able to basically, those two guys basically dominate games. And they, in their one loss, they faced an outstanding Dwaynesburg team. And if I'm not mistaken, that was in a tournament. But otherwise, they've been able to score when they needed to. And like I say, both outstanding, and both, by the way, share the same hairdo. Which, if you look at me, I notice hair like that, and if they both have these big frizzy hairdos. One's a redhead, but that's the only way you could tell them apart. Otherwise, they're tremendous.
So this team ranks #1 in the states. How does this team maybe compare to some of the good ones you've seen in your time covering in Watertown? Seems like they really would be up there in the ranks.
Yeah, they are. I mean, it's for a D school. They play a lot of competition at higher classes here in the area. I mean, they'll play some Class A schools. They'll play, the likes of Watertown, teams like that, and so I think it helps them a little bit. They play some bigger schools, and they're able to sharpen their teeth on in games like that. So I mean, they remind me a little bit of the team that went to the state Final Four 12 years ago in the sense of they had a couple of key players, but the rest of the guys contribute when needed. And in the case the other day against Harrisville, when they were down by 18, those guys were able to tighten up the defense a little bit and score some key baskets when they needed to. And so they remind me of the grittiness of that team 12 years ago. But and that team went undefeated. They were 25-0 on the year. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, it's the likes of going up against the team from your area will certainly, it'll be a major test for them. That's for sure.
And like you said, it's been 12 years since they've been there. How is, it's always fun to see the community support, the school support when you get a team go on a great run like this. Just going to these games, that big comeback against Harrisville. Just what have you seen from the community as they've been supporting this team along the way?
Well, they always support them. I mean, they're there through thick and thin, and Jeff's a former a Sackets Harbor player. They always seem to have good guard play, and the folks that support the team love a good shooting guard. And at this time of the year, that's and they have one in Griner, and also casting. I mean, they both play a bunch of positions, so they're able to move around. But they're the fans supported them. It was a full house the other day between Harrisville and Sackets, and it was about a 50-50 crowd. So I'm expecting a lot of folks to make it to Glens Falls this coming weekend for the game. They'll be there. You'll hear them in the stands.
Should be a fun game. That game Saturday, the semifinals, Sunday, the championship game for whoever were to make it there. Mel Busler, the sports director at WWNY, the CBS affiliate in Watertown, New York. Mel, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
My pleasure. Thanks, AJ. Appreciate the invitation.
Once again, we want to thank all our guests for coming on the podcast. Like you mentioned, we've got affiliates that we've worked with before, friends we met out with for the first time, just a lot of great insight. And the thing that I took away from both of my interviews is obviously it's the state tournament this time of year, but these are going to be some really close, really competitive games. And I think it's coin flips all the way down as to who comes out on top in these matchups.
Yeah, I got a similar vibe from what Maddie talked about. They have obviously their star player, Mr. Abram. He's tough. 6'3" guard, and I got to talk to her about, hey, tell Adrian Archery, the Syracuse head coach, if it's 6'3" and he can shoot, he might be in the orange next year. But I'll let Mr. Adrian handle all the recruiting because he's one that gets paid handsomely to do so. But regardless, there's gonna be some fantastic players down there in the Glens Falls, Albany area this entire weekend that are gonna put on the show.
We'll have you covered on News 8 and RochesterFirst.com for the results of all of those games. Now it's time to turn our attention to the girls' slate. Jeff Mliner. No new friends here. We just got old friends here. Of Empire State Takeover, nobody covers girls basketball like him. I don't know if anybody covers any sport in New York sports like he does. Going around the state, he's a one-man wrecking machine, breaking down all of our matchups for this week. Let's bring you that interview right now with Empire State Takeover. All right, once again, it's time to bring in Jeff Mliner from Empire State Takeover, coming in now for the third time to break down all things girls basketball. Jeff, thanks for coming on the podcast once again.
As always, so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we've got 3 teams here from Section 5 going to the state tournament where they're all playing teams from the Albany area. So right in your backyard, should be a great weekend of matchups.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And it's the extra day with the extra class. So instead of the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I don't know why I would think maybe that they would stack extra games on Friday or Saturday, but we've got the Thursday doubleheader with the C's, and then 2-7-7-2, so a little bit of a marathon weekend. Looking forward to it.
Well, let's get right into. Well, you know what? Let's get right into it then. Starting with the big dogs in Class AA, Hilton taking on Averill Park. Averill Park, top team in the state, 24-0, no L's, undefeated. You go through their schedule and the things that they've done. They've only had 3 games decided by 10 points or less. And one of those games, they just beat them by 30. So, clearly they're a different caliber of team. We bragged all year long about the Section 5 AA bracket and how dominant it has been. But this Averill Park team is clearly different. What makes them so dominant?
This AP team is interesting because they've been – the program is the program there. And I'm not really sure that I can compare Averill Park's program to anything else, in upstate New York or in my coverage region right now, because they've been so dominant in this area within their surroundings for such a long period of time. And the fact that it feels like a program, they've had pretty much every class in my time doing this. They've graduated college basketball players. And just as an example, and this is kind of a side note, but as an example, last Monday they win the Section 2 AA championship. One of those kids that's currently playing college basketball, Amelia Wood, who plays Division I ball at Sacred Heart in Connecticut, just made the day trip back up to watch. She was the youngest of the Wood. There was 9 years of Wood sisters. She was the youngest one of the bunch. It's not like she had any family there. It's just She made the trip from Connecticut back up to Troy for Monday night Section 2 AA final because, Averill Park. Go watch my girls win another one. And it's a different feel from, like a program standard for that reason. Um, AP's been very good for a long time. This is uncharted territory for them. Even they won a state title in Class A a couple years ago. They've never went under, at least in my time, and I don't even think, they had a federation title 15 years ago. I don't think they even did this then. They've never went undefeated through the regular season. Suburban Council schedule carries, they're one of the smaller schools in the Suburban Council, playing the Shens and Colonies and Shakers and Albanys of the world. Somebody always trips them up. And a lot of these times when, this is their 10th straight year that they've won a Section 2 championship, some of those years they went like 10-10, 11-9, 12-8 in the regular season. And even with a couple of these past years, it's been 17-3, 18-2, 20-0 in the regular season, and now 24-0 or whatever it is now. That's unprecedented for them. That's a different sort of territory. I would describe them, if I was to try to make a local comparison or like a Section 5 comparison, they give a similar feel to Victor, but it's a better Victor. It's a Victor, and I'm not trying to disparage Victor by saying this, but Victor is Ryland Fehrenbach and a lot of solid basketball players that are really lacrosse kids. That, high level athletes, Division I lacrosse kids that are also playing basketball, also pretty good at basketball. It's that sort of feel. It's that sort of program staple. Like when I watched Hilton play Victor in the Section 5 AA championship, it was a rock fight. It was a grinded out, physical, half court man to man. Again, physical. You could probably just say a term and then go back to physical. Averill Park gives you that feel, but it's a team full of kids that prioritize basketball, which I don't want to say it's a different sort of pride when you're a basketball first kid on a basketball court, because if you're a competitor, it is what it is. But it's, there's a different feel when, quote, this is your sport. And there's a different sort of IQ. There's a different sort of feel for the game. There's a different sort of experience level when, you might play other sports. Like a lot of these kids are multi-sport athletes, but, just from a basketball standpoint, quote, this is what you do. So it gives that sort of feel of that Victor grinded out half court man to man. Everything, their program staple is what they do on the defensive end, and they're tough, they're physical, but it's a team full of basketball kids. And they're led by a Division I kid, which a bona fide mid-major Division I player in Taylor Holohan, which that helps. Obviously, Northeastern commit. A lot runs through her on the offensive end, and she matches that sort of impact on the defensive end as well, with her ability to protect the rim, rebound, deter, for every shot that she blocks. And she's as good of a shot blocker as I've covered, or as I've seen in my time covering the game. For as many shots as she blocks, she deters that many. It's that many additional paint touches where the kid looks up and sees Taylor, or, just thinks Taylor's around and sees a ghost and kicks it. So, they've got a lot of, it's a little bit different of an animal. Stuff that Hilton could be used to, because Hilton's played Victor 3 times and Hilton's had a difficult schedule, the Liverpools of the world, but kind of a better version of all that.
Yeah. All that sound real good. You over here talking about the peaks of peaks. I mean, they're the top ranked team in the state, so it's not like you're using anything out of the norm here or gassing them up too much. But speaking about Hilton, obviously led by Mallory Hines, who is a Division I player in her own right.
Mm-hmm.
How does Hilton match up with a team like AP, who like you just alluded to, has a Division I player on their team as well. Maybe some other college basketball players down the roster. How do these two teams match up, and what will Hilton need to do in order to come out on top?
So the funny thing about Hilton, and you bring up Mallory, is I like this matchup in a sense because you have, I just showed a lot of love to the Averill Park program. Uh, if the Averill Park coaching staff, coaches Oregon and Keegan, were able to just like do a 2K create a player for exactly what they want as a quote Averill Park player, it's Mallory Heist. That they try to breed a program of Mallory Heists, and that's like the prototype player of just the combination of the toughness, the leadership, the intangibles, uh, the willingness and ability to take over a basketball game, but also, she even when she does it in kind of a team first manner. You never feel like it's about, she scored however many she had against Star Point on Friday, 27 or 28, and she's had her upper 20s and her low 30s, but you never feel like it's about her. And you never feel like she's trying to get hers. And just that, the combination of everything that she brings to the table, and anybody that's watched her, it's just kind of Mal being Mal. That sort of workman-like lunch pail toughness and approach to the game. That's what she's exactly what Averill Park, dies to have every year, what they try to mold. And because of that, like there's certain things from a matchup standpoint, Mal's going to be fine. And Averill Park brings that toughness, that physicality, uh, heat level on the defensive end. She's going to be fine with that. Averill Park's also going to bring a major crowd. This is a Friday 7 o'clock game, and everybody in that Averill Park district, when you turn on your GPS and it just assumes that you're going to work, from late February through mid March for the AP people, it just assumes that they're going to Hudson Valley Community College. They play 5 games there a year over the course of 3 weeks, so they'll if they might have 2,500 people there, and not an exaggeration. Mal's okay with that. It'll depend, as far as a matchup goes. Hilton will need Ella Clark to be at her best. Hilton will need Leah Thompson to be at her best, and they'll they'll have to play as crisp as possible, keep turnovers down. Which, again, when you have Mal on your team, keeping turnovers down is not so big of an issue. But X factors in this game will be, the Ella Clarks and Leah Thompsons. If they're at their best, Hilton's got a real chance, but they have to be good. They have to be the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, that's what they always say in the NBA playoff times. You go on the road, your role players are always the big question mark. Once again, that game, 7 o'clock Friday night. Moving down to Class A, Aquinas taking on Catholic Central. That game is going to be 12:30 Friday afternoon. Catholic Central ranked number 2 in the state, Aquinas ranked number 3. The top 2 teams amongst teams actually playing in NYSFA, so could be some sort of a de facto state championship game. Now, when I started doing my research in this matchup, I figured, a big storyline is the youth on Aquinas versus probably the seniority against who they're going to end up playing in this semifinal game. Turns out there's a lot of youth in this game. Tell me a little about Catholic Central and some of the younger players who have really stepped up for them this season.
0 seniors on the roster either way. And I think your traditional starting lineups between the 2 teams, the only difference is, one team has 2 sophomores and a freshman, and one team's got 2 freshmen and a sophomore. Right? Aquinas usually starts 2 juniors, a sophomore and 2 freshmen, and Catholic High usually starts 2 juniors, 2 sophomores, and a freshman. This is a matchup I've wanted to see for 2 years. Honestly, I've thought of Catholic High is the 518 version of Aquinas, and Aquinas is the 585 version of Kappa Chi, where the makeups of the teams aren't exact, but there's a level of similarity between the two. There's the similarity of Aquinas has experienced their level of growing pains through young players that have been at the varsity level since middle school. Loren Green, 7th grade. Jade Harvey's been up since middle school. Molly O'Toole's been up since 8th or 9th, whatever, but young. AJ, or the list goes on. It's the same thing with Kappa Chi, where Loren's a fantastic freshman point guard. Kappa Chi has got a really good freshman point guard in El Dior Dobert, who's been up since 7th grade. And Navi Turpin has been up over these last 3 years as well. And it's, in a sense, it's a balanced starting five because all five from Kappa Chi can give you something, but a lot of it does go through Dior and Navi. Those have been kind of the two staples over the last 3 years, the backcourt, front court duo. But it's been, those two and Akari Gaddy. They were really Ella DeBacco, coach's daughter, Audrey DeBacco, has been a local figure here for a long time, played at Siena, and she's had a nice, long, successful coaching career at Catholic Central. They were really aided this year by a transfer as well, and Chris Foglia, who was able to play right away because she was a Shaker varsity player over the previous couple years, and the Catholic High school is in the Shaker district. So she was able to transfer from Shaker to Catholic High, play right away, which really made a difference for them just to kind of complete their starting five. Like there was a good group that had some holes, and Chris Foglia filled that unit as far as what she brings to the table. Physical sort of wing that can stretch the floor, shoot the three. She's like almost like a Draymond and like a half court facilitator role that isn't the point guard.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big boost for them as far as their their ability to kind of complete that unit. But yeah, another kind of a tough group. Tough, physical forwards can bully. They bully a lot of teams. They get up into you. They play aggressive man-to-man defense. But yeah, I've wanted to see Aquinas Catholic High for a couple of years now, especially the Loren Dior point guard matchup and then everything around that. Finally get it.
Yeah, these teams, like you mentioned, sort of mirror images. Talk a little bit more about that point guard matchup, Dior and Loren. I've seen Loren play a couple times this year, but that Far West Regional game, I think she really came into her own in creating shots. What are you looking forward to, and what do you anticipate in that point guard matchup there?
Two of the very best in New York, especially at their ages. But two, when you're talking about point guards, and Loren was very good in the Far West Regional game from just being able to fill it up, but when and how. That was she had 24, but it was 24 as in the last 11 of the first quarter to turn a 1-point deficit to a 10-point lead at the end of the first. And then they get up into double digits. Newport chips away. They have a 9-0 run. Early in the third quarter, there was a little bit of like a poke the bear moment. I don't know if I want to call it a scuffle, but it was just kind of like the little beginnings of one. And then Aquinas goes on a 9-0 run. Loren has a couple buckets in that. And then 8 in the fourth quarter to help keep Newport at bay, who, credit to them, they never went away. They didn't roll, it got to 16, 18, and Newport never played dead. But Dior, I'm looking forward to this matchup because Loren, as smooth as she is offensively, and she's developing kind of a complete well-rounded game as a lead guard is being able to score the basketball, shoot the three, create one-on-one off the dribble, get paint touches. Dior gets up into people on the defensive end, and she's a strong offensive player as well, as far as speed, being able to turn the corner, get paint touches. The shots come a long way, but she really gets up into people defensively, and a lot of times that's how she finds her way to impact the game even more. So Loren kind of being the head of the dragon for Aquinas on the offensive end, and Dior being somebody that's known to kind of cut the head off the dragon. That'll be a fun little matchup with those two going at it. Kind of I'm not trying to just break it down into a one-on-one thing, but it's a fun little game within a game with two young players that are really advanced for their ages, and they mean such a great deal for their teams.
The way you talking, Jeff, I want to go out there and lace my sneaks back up. I wouldn't be much of use, but I want to go out there and play ball myself. Wrapping things up in Class D, Elba taking on Northville. This Northville squad is in the Final Four for the first time since 1997. So our viewers and back here in 5A5, they're really not familiar with this Northville squad, quite frankly, because not many opportunities to play a team from that area. This is the top 5 ranked matchup in the state. Elba 5th, Northville 3rd. Obviously, like I just said, our base don't really know much about Northville. Tell them what they should know about them.
Northville they've had potential. You saw it last year, or you were able to start seeing it last year. I thought they had a chance of winning the title, the Section 2 title last year, and the team that ended up winning the title, making it to state semifinals before losing to Oxford and Bishop Gibbons. They played in the semis. It was a one possession game. A Gibbons kid scored with like 10, 12 seconds left to win the game by 1 or win the game by 2. So they were right there. But the development, the progression of this Northville team from when I saw him first time I got to see him this year was early in the year. It was early December. But from then to now has been, they've made as much progress, I think, as any team that I've seen over the course of the winter. They started the year, they have a little bit more now just because of calling kids up from JV for playoffs, but a lot of the year they only played with 6 players. And it helps that one of them is Haley Monroe. Haley is one of the best small school guards in the state. I think she's one of the better guards in Section 2. You can put her on a Class A court, a Class AA court, and she can rock. Smaller guard, 5'4", 5'5", but crafty, skilled, can attack one-on-one off the dribble, turns a corner, gets paint touches, shoots a 3. Pretty complete offensive game. Has really developed as far as making others better around her, being able to set the table, create for others. And another one that defends too. She'll defend at a decently high level. She can create turnovers and turn those into transition opportunities. I'm looking forward to, you've got a high-level junior guard in Northville and Haley, and you've got a high-level junior guard at Elba in Sydney Riley. So again, not to go to the individual thing, but that'll be a fun little, junior guard, 2 of the better ones in the state in Class D as far as I'm considered. But yeah, Northville's made a very sizable progression over the course of the winter. And a lot of that, I've just talked a lot about Haley, but a lot of that has to do with they've got an interesting head coaching situation. They were able to bring a guy by the name of Jim Zullo out of retirement. Jim Zullo is kind of a local legend on the boys' side, so to speak. Won over 500 games on the boys' side between Shen, Brawl Up, and Perth, He had a state federation title with Shen boys back in the 80s, several Section 2 titles. And he's been out of coaching. I mean, he's volunteered. He's helped out a little bit. He's been around a little bit, but he's been out of head coaching probably for about 15 years. And lives in Northville, and they had a little school AAU team there that he coached for him, and then the coaching spot opened up, and he ended up taking it this year. It's a guy that's won over 500 games at the varsity level over the course of like 35 years, and you bring him in to coach his team, and he's done about what you would expect a guy that's won over 500 games at the varsity level over 35 years to do, where you see the development in the other players. You see them be a lot more functional within the offense that he runs, and then also just be more confident and better basketball players. And a fun little side note with the Zulos is we have a father-son coaching duo that's both going for state titles this weekend. His son Sam coaches at as a girls coach at Simsbury High School in Connecticut, and he brings, Simsbury is kind of known to the Section 2 folks because Sam will bring his team up to play in a lot of stuff around here. He's from the area, and they'll play, Shen and Averill Park, and they played in the Christmas tournament, brought Albin this year. And there's a team camp at Shen in August that always bring his team up for. So they're pretty well, they're recognized around here. But Simsbury is in the Class L state championship in Connecticut this weekend. So you've got Jim with the Northville girls and Sam with the Simsbury girls in Connecticut going at about the same time. So interesting little family connection there. Two coaches shooting for state championships. But Northville Elba will be fun. I think the Class D quartet is fun to begin with. Like, I think you could throw all four of those teams in a pot and just pull two names and say, hey, you two play each other. And I think it's a pretty good game between all four of them. So Elba Northville should be pretty fun. They get to wait Saturday for it, but
yeah, Saturday at 12:30 will be that game. Elba was the third seed in sectional, so the fact that they made it here speaks a lot how they've gelled over the past month or so. Like you said, Lydia Ross, Sydney Riley for Elba, and then going up against Haley Monroe, who is apparently 5'4" and drops 30 points every other game. So that's his own thing right there. So that'll be a fun matchup for sure.
Yeah, and Elba, regardless of whatever seed they were, that's a March team. I saw them beginning of February. There was a day-long thing at Niagara Community College between, it was Section 5 versus Section 6. It was a Genesee region teams against the Niagara League, and they played Wilson, who's that NOL power that hasn't lost the game within their league in a few years. So it was decent. It was a close game, decent competition. I think Wilson won by 6. It was a 1-2 possession game late. But just watching Elba then, the thought was that's a March team. You got to have guards to win in March. And Sydney Riley, Lydia Ross, and even Ava Bushek, freshman that I don't know whether she comes off the bench for him all the time. I know she came off the bench for him on Saturday. But they've got alphas in the backcourt, and they've got depth in the backcourt, which that goes a long way this time of year, February, March, being able to put the ball in the basket, being able to control pace, keep turnovers down, make the right decisions consistently. So Elba's a team that's built for this time of year.
Section 5 with 2 state titles on the girls' side last year, 3 going for states this weekend. We'll see how it all shapes out. Jeff Mliner from Empire State Takeover. You can find his work at EmpireStateTakeover.com. You can find all his stuff on Twitter/X at NYS Takeover. We always appreciate your insight and analysis. Thanks for coming on the podcast once again.
So happy to be here. Thank you for having me once again. Looking forward to this weekend.
Once again, we want to thank Jeff for coming on the podcast, always bringing the insight, the analysis. Nobody gets you better for girls basketball state championship weekend than him. And I know he appreciates finally being in his own neck of the woods for all the games. He doesn't have to come out to Finger Lakes or Buffalo or down to Long Island to catch these teams. They're all right in his backyard. I know he appreciates it. I know we appreciate him coming on the podcast there.
Yeah, that's a hardworking man. I saw him at Finger Lakes and right under the basket, tweeting, taking pictures, writing, jotting everything down after every single quarter. He got something out. I really, really appreciate how hard he works and the type of energy he puts towards girls hoops here in the state.
Exactly. So it is the final weekend of the winter sports season, especially with no federation championships this year. So it's official. It's done. It's the end of the road. There's no caveats. There's no, parentheses we need to put over any of our games. State championship weekend should be a great time. Plan is for me to go out there to Albany and Glens Falls on Saturday. So I'll be catching all the action. Should be a good time. And then next week, we recap the state championships, and then we're on to spring as soon as you know it. The weather's been a little spring-like, so maybe it feels more like it lately, but crunch time, Carl.
Listen, if the winter has any indication of what the spring will look like weather-wise, y'all won't hear me complain one iota. Y'all will.
Yeah.
Y'all gonna hear me complain. Y'all gonna hear me complain. But it won't be as bad. It won't be as bad as, man, it's April and it's windy and raining and stuff. That won't happen as much because the winter has been very, very kind to me.
All right, we'll see what the weather does. We'll see what our girls and boys basketball teams do. We'll be back next week to break it all down, which should be a great week of basketball action there in the Capital Region. For Carl Jones, I'm AJ Fellman. Thank you for listening and watching the High School Huddle podcast, rochesterfirst.com, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Thank you for watching. Thank you to all of our guests for coming on the podcast. I reached out to 4 people to come on. They all came on. Didn't take too much, twisting the arms there. So we appreciate all their efforts for coming on our podcast. Thanks again to all of our guests. It is time to break the huddle. Once again, for Carl, I'm AJ. We'll see you next time.